welcome to Adobe Live. So glad to have you here. We are here for day 2 of exploring character design with the one, the only, Sam Peterson. Whoop, 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 whoop. I'll be your host, Anna Davis-Court. And today we are basically continuing what we worked on yesterday. It's very exciting to be back in Photoshop today. Speaking of Photoshop, we just had a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Kathleen Martin. If you want to catch those, they're at 9 a.m. Pacific every day this week. Don't miss out on the new set of challenges. And today also we have an artist spotlight. So stick around for that. Very exciting stuff. So Sam, just a heads up, there's going to be a little less time to paint today, but it's not a big deal. And also, it's just about watching your process. Nothing has to be quote unquote finished or anything like that. So just to catch people up if they haven't seen yesterday's stream, by the way, you should watch the replay. It was really fun. What would you like to say to the people about your work? Maybe give a little intro to yourself.
Yeah, my name is Sam Peterson. Sam Peterson Art everywhere online. I do concept art, fantasy illustration, a lot of character and creature work. I can pull up my Instagram real quick.
A lot of fighting fantasy. Oh yeah,
definitely. A lot of big ugly creatures and strange looking wizards and stuff like that. I guess this guy's pretty handsome, but
oh, he's a looker.
So I've been posting. If you guys want to keep up with me, this is the best place to follow me currently on Instagram, because I've been posting every day for 20 days or so. I just posted this guy this morning, but this is kind of what I do, a lot of fantasy characters and stuff. So we're going to be doing more of that today here in Photoshop.
Woo! Real quick, I just wanted to say hi to everybody. We've got our mod Cody Bear in the chat. Hi, Cody Bear, saying that we have the artist spotlight. You can nominate yourself or someone else in the tab above the chat. Yay. We've got Ferry, Kimmy, Andreas. We have Stony back today, Christine. So good to see you guys. And Wade, as always, Club Wade in the house. All right, so now, sorry to interrupt, but now we can kick off in Photoshop.
Yeah, definitely. So if anyone didn't see it yesterday, this is what we were working on. This was the line drawing that we did during the stream, and then we colored it in a little bit, and we got a little bit of lighting info. So this is where we left off at the end of last stream.
So cool.
But I did a little bit of stuff off stream just to clean it up. And so this was kind of the color palette change. Let me take away this. Let's see here. Yeah, so this is just the flat colors, basically the change you can see there. So I made the mask for the little robot guy, and then I just cleaned up some of the colors, but you can tell they're still very, very loose and rough. But I think we got a better idea for the costume that I drew out. So it's still very like scribbly and just kind of blocked in.
I love a good scribble color. And if you didn't catch yesterday's stream, you might not know, but Sam put in these colors super quickly and loosely, which was really fun to watch. You just kind of find what you felt were the colors of this character and then just pop them in there. And now you've just basically like made them into the garments, right? So it's like,
yeah,
like a little more localized.
Yeah, so I kind of went off my line drawing and I was like, well, I got this little shape here and this one here, and just tried to define those shapes through the colors a little bit more.
For sure. And you colored not only the ranger, but their companion, which is called
Rusty. Courtesy of Wade. That was his idea.
Excellent job, Wade. Rusty lives again.
We need Wade in this chat. I need him to guide me through this whole painting. He's doing like 50% of the work for me.
Exactly. It's all about Wade. By the way, Chad Rolfe said, Club Wade, boots and cats and boots and cats.
Hey, what's up, Chad? Wade, everyone in chat. Cody, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Excited to get into day 2, where we're actually going to be talking mostly about lighting today. I've been having a lot of fun, very deliberately painting in my lighting and trying to decide on a lighting scheme from the get-go, rather than just, a lot of times what I would do is I would just start painting the face the brightest, and then the shoulders, and kind of have it fade off. I guess it was sort of an ambient lighting, but I realized it wasn't very intentional, and I want to put more thought into like, where are these characters, like what's the mood supposed to be and everything like that. So we're going to jump into that today.
Yeah, and you kind of you said that you wanted to do a golden hour kind of lighting. Do you still feel that?
I think so. We can play around with it, and if one strikes us more than the other, we can definitely go a different direction. But I think before we jump into that, I was talking about how I might refine the lines. a little bit off stream. I might do that right now, and
Sounds good.
we'll warm up with a little bit of line work, and then we'll jump right into the lighting. And actually, this is kind of what I do. If I do a character and it's supposed to be pretty rough, I'll leave it. But sometimes I'm like, well, I feel like the hands could use a little bit more work. The hands and the face are something I prioritize a good amount. So I actually took some reference.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. We get to see your reference photos.
Yeah, so the hands are basically what I wanted to reference.
No, the epic face.
My very like unimpressed face.
Well, you said you needed a new what was it? The like thumbnail shot, your headshot or whatever. This is it.
Oh, there we go. Very majestic. I should have posed my face a little bit better for that.
You didn't know, but it's a candid shot. That's what everybody wants.
So I'm gonna just fix the hands up, and then I think pretty much call it good. We worked on the face, I think, enough, but you can see the hands currently like a triangle. So I don't do very super clean lines here, as you can kind of tell. It's really just like a blueprint for me to know what to paint. So if there's enough clarity, then I don't know, I consider it good. But if I'm really going detailed, I'll probably spend a bit more time going over the lines. But I like to keep it loose regardless.
For sure. And with this sketch, I'm always fascinated to know whether people do, when they're like cleaning up their lines, whether they start a new layer or erase out and like clean up what they already have. It looks like you're erasing out.
Yeah, and I do both. I really don't like doing new clean line layers. If I do it, I'll have my initial sketch be very, very rough, and then I'll go through it. It's a weird trade-off, because I find that you don't want to skimp on the line work, but at the same time, I don't like doing clean line work, and I don't like going over it just to make it pretty when no one's going to see it in the final product. And if you do have your line work visible in the final painting, which a lot of people do, then it might be worthwhile. But for me, it's just, it's just like notes for myself. I do show these in the final piece. Like when I post it, I should say I show the line work and the process, but the lines aren't actually visible in the final painting. So I don't typically prioritize it. I usually erase to kind of mimic how I draw in my sketchbook, like with a kneaded eraser.
Ah, a kneaded eraser. You fancy.
Yeah, I just basically, dab it on the paper, lighten it up, and that's kind of what this does when.
Nice.
All right, I think his hand proportions are all off. Let's
oh yeah, proportions. Oh, age old.
Yeah.
Thing. Luckily in Photoshop, if we can, if it's like a massive hand accidentally, you can always lasso and shrink it. But man, I've been sketching traditionally lately, and it's just the bane of my existence, where it's like,
oh my gosh,
it's drawn so well, it's just too big, small, whatever. Ugh.
Isn't that the worst when it's like drawn well, it's just at the wrong angle, or it's too small. It's like, well, either I just leave it like this, or I redraw it completely.
Yep. I've actually seen people put post-it notes in their sketchbook where they basically like draw over it. It's almost like erasing a square chunk, and then they draw on the post-it like their new thing connected to the sketch, and then you can see both of them like lift it up and see the difference.
Yeah, I've kind of seen, I think people use tracing paper for a similar reason.
Yeah,
allowing you to, I think when I work traditionally, it's just all the more encouragement, I guess, to keep the shapes really big and loose. So if I draw something like this traditionally, I'm not missing much. If I got it wrong, I can redo this like triangle shape in another spot. So I'll try to get it like this and be like, all right, is this the right shape? And if it is, then I can probably detail it and, right shape, right angle, so I won't have to move it. But yeah, that's tricky. I don't do a lot of traditional drawing anymore, so.
Maybe because of this.
I mean, digital does make it super easy.
Yeah, really.
I drew in my sketchbook recently, and that was a lot of fun. Like, it's easy to forget how convenient, or not convenient, but like how natural it feels just to sketch on a physical medium like that. And I do miss it, but digital is so quick because you don't have to scan it or take a picture or adjust it. You just kind of go.
Yeah, it's all right there. By the way, we've got a few comments on your reference. Paco says, "Lol, yes, awesome reference photo." And then there's some jokes about the posing. Ferry says, "Sam becomes a Marine." Lol. Wade says, "That ref, lol, so good." Chad says, "Sir, yes, sir."
Yeah, that's what I felt like when I was taking it. I was like, I'm saluting my camera.
Salute the sun. That's what happens every time you're like, I can't see. Cody has a really good question. Sam, have you ever drawn yourself as a fantasy character?
I haven't, no.
What? You gotta do it.
Yeah, that would be funny. I don't know. I guess I could do like my own D&D character if they resembled me, but they never do. My last D&D character was a really grumpy dwarf. But I guess my current one is kind of a nerdy elf, so maybe that's a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm.
Just give myself elf ears.
Nerdy elf, I like it. Do you know what class you would be?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have the skills to be any real D&D class, but if I could choose any, that's what you mean.
You can't actually cast magic? Come on.
No, I've been trying, but ever since Star Wars came out, I'm trying to move things with my mind, but it doesn't work out.
Well, I mean, being an artist, there's some sort of magic in that. And I feel like maybe it could be akin to like a summoner or something. Like you bring things to life, you create.
Okay. I see where you're going with that. And here's a reference to just my hand.
Yeah.
The power grip.
Jake Green is in the chat. He's a good friend of ours on the stream, and he says, "I also prefer the kneaded eraser. They just work better. I need to get a fancy kneaded eraser. Apparently, I'm destroying my paper."
Do you not use those ever?
I have like 5 million. We have this giant art file. Me and my husband are both artists, and so we have the accumulated art supplies of 2 artists. So like, if you need something, we've got it. But the kneaded erasers are sitting, very politely in their little boxes, and I never bust them out. So I guess I just need to.
It's like the only eraser I use at all.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's other good ones, but since I don't draw traditionally a lot, it's just when I first used it, taking an art class, I was like, oh, this is really nice.
For sure.
Because I don't do a ton of completely erasing something, but it works for that too decently. But I mostly do like dabbing it up to lighten it up. I'll draw a little bit more and dab on it to lighten it up and like refine it. It's kind of
dab, make it look fab. But yeah, that I think I'm a little bit scarred from art school, losing so many of them, because they're like, I don't know, they just like fall out and never come back. They're on the art room floor and get super dirty. Just like, but you're just more responsible with your materials, clearly.
I mean, you just got to buy like 100 of them and keep them around. I think I haven't even used them much recently, but I still have like a bunch in some art box in my closet.
Nice. Cody, by the way, has a vision for you. I envision Sam as a wizard painter. He has lots of brushes, etc., hanging from his person.
Ooh,
I mean,
I like it.
I love it.
You say wizard, I'm in.
I want like a giant version of like a paintbrush or pencil or whatever on your back, where it's like your giant weapon, but like whoosh.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. Man, I'm gonna have to do myself as a D&D character
next stream. Oh, this is a perfect time to mention Sam streams on his own channel on Behance, and if you follow him on Twitter, you can see every single time he goes live, which you stream like every day of the week, which is amazing.
Yeah, at least Monday through Friday. I stream. I guess I've just been doing that forever. It's just part of my routine. But yeah, if you ever want to catch me live, I'm all over the place, and Twitter is a good place to keep up with that.
Absolutely.
All right, so now the thing I'll have to do is adjust the mask a little bit to match with my line drawing change. But you can see I kept it pretty simple. I just wanted, I felt like this hand gripping the leash it was a weird angle. It didn't feel quite right. So that's where I'll jump in with reference and make sure everything's good.
It looks great. I mean, it's also so much quicker when you use reference, because it's just like, oh yeah, there it is. Pop it in.
And that's what I do a lot too, is I'll get my ideas out in my own sketch, and then if something looks off or if I want to refine it, I'll do the pose copying my sketch that I've already established. And I mean, that's not to say that's always going to be better, but it works out a lot for me, is trying to get my idea out first and then take a reference to match that idea rather than kind of dictating what I'm going to do by the reference I have. But I mean, sometimes if you take the pose or something ahead of time, that can actually get better results. So really depends what you're comfortable with at the moment.
By the way, Wade says, oh yeah, kneaded is my go-to always. I wind up making little sculptures with them too. I mean, that's an artist right there.
Yeah, they're pretty fun to play with.
Hey, if you need to like understand a 3D form, like, I wonder what this nose would look like with this lighting. Nose.
Yeah, I've gotten some cheap clay before just to make like little maquettes and test things. I should probably do that more. It's really good lighting practice. And I mean, understanding things in 3D too. You know, if you can sculpt something, you can, you're in a much better situation to be able to draw it.
Absolutely.
Oh, and one little tip that I think I did this yesterday, and I do this all the time. I should be doing it more, but I flip my canvas a lot. And you can actually physically flip your canvas, but the quicker way to do it, I believe it's view. If you go to view at the top, there's flip horizontal. And Chad actually told me this, if he's still in chat. But you can flip your canvas as fast as you want, even if it's a huge file. Sorry, I shouldn't say flip your canvas. It's just flipping the view. It's not actually changing the document. So when you flip your canvas, it has to load, especially if you have a bigger file. It takes a little while to load, but with flip view, you can just do it as fast as you want. So
that is a fantastic tip.
It's really handy. I use it a lot. I have it hotkeyed to Control T, so I can just flip on the fly.
Nice. Wait, isn't that transform usually?
Yeah, I never use it though. I don't ever use the hotkey for transform because I transform so infrequently, or I'll just like select it with the move tool and then like press Control if I want to do like a free transform. So yeah.
You're powerful. Good job.
You're a wizard.
You're a wizard, Sam.
Right.
Cody says the age-old PSA: flip, sip, save, stretch.
Good call. Saved.
Yeah. Saved your skin. Whoop whoop.
And then now we can jump into the lighting. So what I did was I created a multiply layer and I just filled it in with this sort of bluish purple color, very desaturated. That's typically what I use for my shadows. If I want to go darker, I can. If I want to make it cooler, I can by saturating it more. So I can just kind of play around with that.
Nice.
If you want to make it like a warm shadow, you can do that. So I like using a multiply layer for that reason. But now we're going to make a color dodge, clip it to the same mask, and then just try doing some lighting situations. And why I like color dodge is we can do this warm lighting that kind of looks sort of like golden hour, very warm, but you can also do cool lighting. So if you want like moonlight or something, you can paint in with like a cooler light. And you can adjust like how cool you want it. So instantly, I feel like that looks a bit more like moonlight.
For sure.
Like he's outside, some bright moon out. So color dodge gives me a lot of flexibility.
Absolutely. That is a really good tip also. And you're using it as a clipping mask to your character's paint layer?
Yeah, so my layer structure is the mask that we made initially. And I'll do the lines first, and then I'll kind of trace the mask under it. And then I do clip my color layers to that. So actually that was my old one, but this is the one we're using. And then I clip a multiply layer and then clipping the color dodge layer.
Very nice. Got the stacks. And in that way, you can always go back and be like, oh, I want light here. I want shadow here.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to go back and manipulate any area you need to. So I could go back and edit the color layer, and I could paint completely new colors, even with all this lighting information in there. So it gives you a lot of flexibility.
By the way, we have a question from Mayer saying, "Hey, Sam Peterson, how do you come up with ideating a character? Love your work, by the way."
Thank you. Um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is visual library, and I think a lot of it too is kind of knowing what you want. So I think there's a lot of questions I try to ask myself when I'm doing characters, and I think you need something to pull from. Like you need to have that visual library built up through studies and through looking at things that are applicable to character design. So, I mean, just on the posing front, like knowing how to do gesture drawing and knowing a bit of anatomy and being comfortable with figure drawing and the basic shapes of the human figure, that gives you a whole toolbox of ideas to work with posing characters. You know, you could do like a Spider-Man pose leaping off a building or some sort of action pose. You could do something like this that's a little bit of gesture to it, but kind of a simple standing pose. You have a lot of flexibility in those ideas. And then the next stage is kind of like costume design. So if you've looked up a lot of different armors and you know how armor is structured and how it works, how it looks, what leather armor looks like versus metal, and like how clothing is layered in different ways. There's so many references out there for clothing, like costume design for movies, fashion shows, street fashion. You know, there's just so much historical like illustrations and like artifacts and stuff. So if you kind of go out of your way to study and do studies for each area, figure drawing, costumes, lighting, you know, all these things can make for an interesting character. And I think it's really just study and visual library building over time.
Mm-hmm. A lot of that takes curiosity of just the world too, being like, I'm interested in this. I'm gonna check it out today.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point too, because you'll see that stuff when you're out and about. Like if you go out to a museum or if you travel or you see cool things, sometimes it's just like the sun setting and it's hitting the building in a really cool way and you want to capture that feeling. Or you see a person who's like, I don't know, maybe they have a really interesting fashion or a really interesting look and you're like, there's a lot of like character to that person that I could put into one of my drawings. That would be kind of neat.
For sure.
I think that curiosity, like you're kind of looking for inspiration more when you think that way. So that helps a lot.
Agreed. By the way, Jake says, I love this combination of fantasy and tech, which we were talking about yesterday, how you wanted it to be like fantasy sci-fi, which is a very cool way to go with this. Like, yeah, you can see a lot of Sam's work on his Instagram and Twitter and all that jazz. And I think that combining sci-fi is a really cool push for this, where it's like a little bit different, just a little bit like something new.
Yeah, I kind of found myself almost like I like drawing fantasy, but almost getting kind of bored with the designs. Like I want to actually design something and not just draw another, you know, knight. I mean, that's fun too. I still do that a lot, but I wanted to start like pushing a different direction as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, what if I tried different ways of combining fantasy and sci-fi a little bit? And this is one, I mean, this isn't very subtle because it's like a fantasy guy and a droid. So, but the other push was like, well, he's got this kind of rifle, but it's powered by magic and it's, you know, not like a modern day rifle. So what if I play around with that? So each time I have another idea, you know, it'll probably find its way in one of these characters.
For sure. Rusty's just the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to play around with the idea of making a mech a little bit more fantasy looking, you know, because it's taking a fantasy character, making them more sci-fi, or taking a sci-fi thing like a robot and making it more fantasy. And I think you can do that with like the shape language you're using, you know, not have the shapes be super like modern and sharp edges, like maybe more clockwork elements. I'm not sure these are things I'm kind of thinking about now for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always the opportunity for like, yeah, the next time I'll push it in this direction, which I think sometimes when you feel that mid painting, you're like, oh, I want to do this, but you can't do everything in one painting.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of have to be like, okay, next time, put it on the list.
And I think it really depends on the purpose of it too, because for these are really quick paintings. I'm trying to like update my Instagram more and do more quick sketches and just get used to that. So it's like, this is a quick idea. But then if I'm doing like a big illustration, I'm going to spend a lot of time on, I'll probably put a lot more time into that initial drawing and design and
like
ideation.
you did with the dragon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. We looked at an awesome dragon that Sam painted yesterday, and well, he didn't paint the dragon yesterday. It was over quite a long time to paint it, and it turned out beautifully. So if you want to check that out, go to Sam's Instagram. And by the way, Wade put a Instagram link for Tokyo Fashion, which is an Instagram that he says is fun to look through for inspiration, which is very cool. And Fairy is asking a question. Do you have any tips on drawing highlights and shadow?
Highlights and shadow. I mean, shadow, I like to define a lot of it through the multiply and color dodge layer that I'm setting up here. My goal lately has kind of been like, if I can make it look good in this stage, it means the foundation is good. It means my shapes are good, like the silhouette and all that stuff. The color scheme is good. The values are pretty good. And the goal is to not have to paint a ton on it to get it to look finished. I showed that beholder yesterday.
Yeah.
If you remember that guy.
Wait, it's a mind holder or a beast flayer.
Yeah, there were some good names people were throwing out. I have to like write them all down, but people were liking this and commenting on it. And I felt like it came together pretty quickly. It was just like the shape, threw on some quick colors. It was just like this gradient of color, and then threw on a little underlighting that was like warm and red looking, and then this kind of rim light that was cool. And I think it looks good right here. Like it could be just, oh, this is it. This is done. Yeah. But the goal is to like have the painting just kind of take it to that next level, but you already have a good foundation. So that's really been my focus lately and what I'm trying to keep in mind. So I'll be like, I don't want to rush this too much because that's going to make the painting a little bit more difficult.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. If you have that base down, it's basically true for every single facet of the process, right? It's like if the sketch looks good, then the flats will look good, and then if the flats look good, the lighting can look, like it kind of builds on each other. Like if every stage of the process goes, or like not necessarily goes smoothly, because there's plenty of like checking and trying to figure out if it's right and fixing things and stuff like that, but the idea that it comes out quickly and stuff like that, that means that all the way through your foundations were just really like solid and it all worked.
Exactly. And I think I used to take that to mean like, oh, before I move on, the line drawing has to be perfect. And before I, move into lighting, my flat colors need to be perfect. And it made for this really like kind of stressed out process. But now I'm just like, I can always go back to the lines. They're fine. They're good enough. Let's move on.
Absolutely.
I can go on to the colors. Let's do the lighting. And I can at any point kind of go back and change things. So it's a very like flexible process if you want it to be.
Absolutely.
I'm trying a top-down lighting now. I had some characters like that previously when I was trying out different lighting situations. So I'm just gonna play around here with different lighting setups and see.
Absolutely. I love seeing you go through with just every little brush stroke. I think Rick Adams said it really well. You're transforming it with every stroke of the brush. Especially with lighting, it can just pop it in such a quick way where it's like, oh yeah, here's a plane. Suddenly it's 3D.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get a lot of cool flexibility, just playing around with ideas. I mean, these are a little bit similar. This is supposed to be like top down. And what I could do is I could even throw on a rim light. And I try to name all my layers because a lot of these lighting layers are color dodge layers. So it helps to kind of label them. I actually started labeling them like, the light they would actually be, the fill light and the rim light and all that. So
that's really useful if you're ever thinking about like handing off the file to somebody, having them layer or labeled and like clear, like, oh yeah, this is all the rim light, because every once in a while you paint on that wrong layer and it's like, darn it. That little bit of rim light got on the color dodge or whatever.
Yeah, and after working for a bit, it's nice just to have organized layers and be able to tell where everything is. So I definitely group my layers and name them, but I don't have that many layers. Like by the end of the process, it's not like I have 50 plus. So it's pretty easy to kind of be like, this is my line layer, mask, colors, shadow, and then, you know, there's a handful of painting layers past that.
So you're saying you actually label your layers and you don't have 5 million. I think you are an extreme rarity among artists.
I might be. I'm not even sure anymore, honestly.
Everyone I talk to is like, oh yeah, it's chaos in there. Don't look.
I do feel like I hear that a lot. Yeah. I used to be like that. I could show you my files from, I don't know, even just like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and you'd probably that's what it looks like. Like there's no order to it. It's just like layer 108, layer 109, copy.
Yeah, right. Copy.
But I feel like this, yeah, I feel like it helps a lot.
Cody says he labels his layers. He really is a painting wizard. Too true. And by the way, thank you, Cody, for reminding us. In about an hour, we are going to have the artist spotlight, where we spotlight one of you guys. If you want to be nominated for the future artist spotlights that we are going to have, there is a tab right above the chat where you can nominate yourself or somebody who you just love the work of, and we can spotlight them. Show off your work on the stream. Artist spotlight. By the way, Ferry is asking, why do I see selection around the canvas? Oh, was it the marching ants? Something?
Yeah, I probably did Control A, Control something. You know, I copied something. I'm not sure, but I'll just Control D to get rid of it. There's no reason. I just didn't realize I had it.
I think that's one of the most common things I run into when I'm like painting and nothing's happening. I'm like, it's because I have some part of the canvas selected. And it's like, darn it. So the hotkey to deselect is Control D.
Yeah, I do a lot of Control A, like Control C. So I'm sure that's what it was. Control A is select all, and then Control C, Control B is copy and paste.
Just copy everything.
We could try one more lighting scenario. So I'm trying this where it's kind of the golden hour. This is like more of a top lighting situation.
High noon.
But we could try like a backlighting situation here.
Ooh.
Let's see. I think that might still be just like a rim light. And it helps with different backgrounds, of course. Making them lighter or darker, but sometimes what I like to do is a sort of fill light, and this is also done with a color dodge layer. But I'll do a sort of like airbrush bounce lighting if I need to. Maybe, I mean, you got to think about what it is. But maybe it's this kind of like dramatic. Let's clip that to the mask as well. It's kind of this like dramatic underlighting.
They're standing on the edge of a volcano.
Yeah, exactly. Or sometimes I'll even do like a fill lighting layer. If it's like they're standing on sand in the direct sunlight, or some sort of surface that would have a lot of bounce light, you can kind of bounce it up into them a bit like that.
Right. And where did you learn what kind of environments would cause different lighting effects?
I think it's just kind of learning about how light works. So once you learn about bounce lighting and how the environment affects the subject, you kind of see that more in photos. Like you recognize it when you see it. So you'll see that at the beach. If there's any beach photos, there's always this like really warm underlighting on people because of the sun bouncing off of the sand. Even if they're facing away from the sun and they're in shadow, there'll be that kind of ambient bounce light. So just recognizing it when you see it. You see that in the snow a lot too. Everything's bright because the white snow reflects so much. And then just seeing like cinematic lighting when there's that like kind of sinister red underlighting, that could happen from a variety of, it's probably a light source in movies usually, but just kind of looking at how different lighting situations affect.
So you heard it here first. Your new assignment is go to the beach, go snowboarding, watch movies.
Go to a volcano.
Oh, yeah. That too.
Stand looking sinisterly into it.
I just watched a video where they made, it was at a college. There's the only one in, I believe, the world, maybe there are 2 of them, that creates lava, where it's not in a volcano, but they superheat rock and metal and pour it. And it was so cool looking. Ugh. I love lava. It's the forbidden snack. I really want to bite it.
You said that was at a college?
Yeah, in Syracuse. They just decided we're going to make some lava to see how it reacts to things. And they pour it on sand, and it was just fascinating. Like it bubbled up because there were micro bits of what do you call it, like moisture in the sand. And so it created these bubbles of intensely thin rock and metal where if you touch it, it would just like apart. It was so cool.
Huh. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Definitely. I think that was a Kyle Hill video if anybody wants to see it, just by the way. And Rick is saying, if you were in the habit of naming layers, it saves so much time figuring out what you did on a project from a year ago, or changes in or a change in tools, which I was thinking while you're talking about that, Sam, too. It's like you don't even have to like hand off the file. It's just for you in the future too, being like, oh, I know where things are generally in this one.
Yeah. It's nice if you ever have to go back and look at it and just kind of break down what the process was. And I've been posting my processes on Instagram and stuff a lot too. So
true.
It kind of helps with that. Just like, oh, if I want to share what I did, it's hard to share it when it's like the layers are just chaos.
And here's another layer of detail and another one and another one.
Yeah.
I feel called out.
I think once I started working somewhat methodically, like, okay, first I'm going to establish my lines and then my colors, and then I want to get the shadows and lighting in there. It became very structured, and it just kind of made sense to be like, all right, I'll name this one light and this one shadow and go from there.
For sure. By the way, Jake has a tip saying, hey, Sam, I saw you right click on the add clipping mask to the rim layer, and it's only like one click less, but you can also do that by alt clicking between the layers. Do you know about that one?
I do, and I've done it before, but I don't know if it's just such a habit. I think it may be one of those things where I would have to force myself to do it for like a handful of times and then see if I really do like it, because I think it is quicker if you just what is it? They said it was alt click.
Yeah,
alt click. Yeah, I think that would be faster, honestly. I think I'm stuck in my ways. So when I heard it, I'm like, I'm gonna keep right clicking. But you're right, like in practice, when you actually go to do it and you just do it a few times, you're like, it's quick. Yeah. I think I'll start trying to use that and see if I can adopt it, because it does seem a bit quicker.
Absolutely. Do you have any other parts of Photoshop that you find are like a really good tip or quick thing to be like, oh yeah, that really helped my process along?
Yeah, so I think flipping is big. Hotkeying everything you use frequently. I think if you use something more than a couple times each session, I would say definitely learn the hotkeys for it. I stopped using the tablet hotkeys many years ago when like my tablet buttons weren't working, and then I realized how useful it is to have everything on the keyboard, because you can do so much more.
For sure.
But just things I use frequently are like warp, so I hotkey that. My flip, I hotkey that. I have this little trick for checking my values with Control Y. That's really nice, because you can actually paint in this mode. So if I'm going here, you can see I'm actually selecting colors.
Okay,
I mean, they're dark. They're dark, so it's not super obvious, but yeah, you can see that's like green and pink. And then if I paint, I'm selecting all these different things. I can paint in this mode, flip it back, and I'm actually painting with colors.
And that's Control Y?
It's Control Y once you set it up, but you go to Window, actually, it's View. You go to View at the top, Proof Setup, and then click Custom. And then you'll see this device to simulate. And I have a bunch of them, but put it to working grade dot gain 20%. Once you click OK, it's going to go to this grayscale mode, and you can just flip it back and forth now with Control Y.
My eyes.
So you'll see the document up here. When you activate it, it says dot gain 20% in the title. So that kind of flips on and off. But
yeah, it's like changing the color mode, but temporarily.
Yeah, so it's just changing the view of it. That's why you can still paint in color. And I use that sometimes. If nothing else, I use it for checking my values, but I use it sometimes just for painting if I really want to just focus on the values. And once you set it up once, it should work for all your future documents. So you shouldn't have to set it up each time.
That is a really great tip. I think that's huge, especially for artists who need to work on their values right here. So that is something that like any way that you can clip or flip between something really quickly, like back forth, it changes how your eyes see things. I feel like if it takes like 7 clicks to be like, oh, this way, that way, or whatever, it just slows down that process of your eyes being able to see subtle differences.
Yeah.
So that's a great tip, Sam. Thank you.
No problem. So I'm gonna take a little capture of each lighting situation we have. I actually kind of like the other lighting situations, but I want to see if I can work with the one that I'm setting this up for, because he's covering his eyes, and this lighting situation I think looks pretty cool. But I don't think it makes sense for him kind of doing this.
Do we care if it makes sense?
Maybe I mean,
there's just like looking.
There's that question too. Like, do I care? Does it matter?
I like it all. I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's a story behind every single one of these.
Yeah,
seeing them next to each other is gonna be so hard.
That's kind of what I try to get across, is like you can tell so much story through the mood. I mean, this is really quick. You know, I could spend a lot longer actually being intentional with these, but I just wanted to throw out some really quick ones so you guys can see. But this is a cool lighting. It does seem like he's standing on like the edge of a volcano or something. This is more like a top-down lighting. I think we could do a little bit more with that, but it also helps when you play with the background values to maybe darken that down. This is more of the golden hour lighting, and I want to push that a little further because I feel like I jumped out of that one pretty soon. So let's try. This is a layer I don't use too frequently, but it has a cool effect, and that is the lighten layer. So what I like to do with skin, I'll get an airbrush. I'll select the highlighted part of his skin that's receiving light, and then I'll darken it down a little bit and make it warmer. So more saturated. So I'll put more red into it. Gotcha. And this kind of saturates the if you can see that happening right there, kind of saturates the core shadow, and it looks a little bit more I don't know, like there's like blood in the skin, or just makes it look a little bit more alive.
Well, there's also the kind of glow effect that it gives to the shadow edge, where it's like the light bleeds through a little bit, which when it's very intense light, like the sunset stuff, where it's weird light, you guys. If you've ever seen sunsets, like they can do things that you don't think possible. Like, oh, I'm looking at a blue house, sunset hits it, it looks orange. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power in that.
A little bit of that glow is kind of a nice effect. And then what's happening is, since it's a lighten layer, it's only going to lighten things that, you know, are darker than it. So since the highlight of the skin is brighter than what I'm painting with, it's only affecting the shadow. So you get this nice little like glowing rim light effect.
And Cody calls out subsurface scattering.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of, if you have this really intense light on a face and the shadow's casting, or the nose is casting a shadow, you know, it's not going to be this really dark shadow. It might be blown out because of all the ambient light. So we still get a shadow there, but it's a little brighter. And then like, I can always do a little underlighting here, since there'll be some light bouncing off his arm into the under part of his horn. And why not in the ears?
Why not?
Doesn't make sense, but I always give ears a little glow.
If everything had to make sense in a piece of artwork, like why paint it? You know, it's to make the stuff happen that you want to happen.
You just say, I do what I want, and then put the light wherever you feel like it.
By the way, Abdelrahim has a question. Hey, Sam and Anna, should a concept artist have animation skills besides their drawing skills?
I certainly do not.
You don't animate on the rig?
I don't. I've actually thought about like trying to animate my digital paintings and stuff before. But no, I do not. I've never really animated.
Yeah, there's a program called Spine that I've heard of for animating like full paintings in a really convincing way, where it feels like it's alive, and that would look so cool. I've
heavily contemplated using that very program.
Yes.
I've looked into it like starting years ago, and I still think about it. There's certainly going to be some project down the line, I can almost guarantee it, that will involve me animating my digital paintings, in like subtle ways, like subtle movement. I'm not trying to animate them like frame by frame style animation, but
For
just
sure.
if you could imagine this guy like kind of some idle animation, almost like he's breathing. There's just a little bit of movement, maybe the cape's kind of moving in the wind slightly.
For sure.
That's the kind of stuff that I would be interested in.
And if you're interested in that, chat, I know that keeping things on separate layers really helps. Like, say, having the cape on its own layer would make it so easy to animate, where it's just like, woo, woo.
Yeah.
And Cody is asking if the program is called Spine. And yeah, it's just like the spine in your back. Spine.
Yeah, type in Spine 2D and you'll probably find it.
Yeah, don't just Google Spine. It's true, but we'll bring up other things too.
They have a feature in that software specifically called meshes, so you can do weighted meshes. So essentially what you can do is take a face, like a painting of a face, and I think you weight it more heavily in the front or in the back, but basically you can like kind of warp the face, so it looks like it's turning a little bit. And yeah, there's some really cool effects you can get with that. People get really like interesting realistic animations through some character, like just basically you like break down each piece of the character. So you break down the arm maybe into multiple pieces, and it's kind of this like, I don't know, it's really cool motion you can get. And you can get like a 3D effect with stuff too. It's very interesting for 2D art.
For sure. We just need to find somebody who knows Spine already to be a collaborator with you. And then you make a project together, and it's like the best thing in the world.
I think the thing is I get like excited about ideas, but I don't always have the time at the moment to pursue them.
Of course.
So I've had to hold off getting the software because I'm like, if I'm not going to use it like tomorrow and commit to it, I don't want to just get it and have it like sit, on my hard drive for a year and be like, oh, remember when I bought that software 2 years ago and I still haven't gotten around to using it.
Do you think it incentivizes you at all? Like, oh, I own it. Like, I should use it because I bought it with my monies.
I don't know. I think that's more dominated by like the project that I'm working on. Like I'm committing to a certain project, so I don't have time for that. I'd probably find time to use it, but yeah, something I very well may do in the future, since I have personal projects that I want to pursue that would involve a little bit of that. So you guys can check back with me in a year or two and see if I've done it yet. I'm sure you'll see it at some point.
Sam, where's the animation? Yeah. But to answer the question, yeah, I think that you can concentrate on one part of things. For concept art, I don't know of anybody who has to animate to be able to get hired for that.
Yeah, back to that question. I've never heard of that being a requirement. I will say it wouldn't hurt you, because any like feeling of how the body moves and a sense of weight and movement, that's only going to help you draw like the figure and characters and stuff. But it's definitely not required. You don't need like an animation portfolio to be, get hired as a concept artist.
For sure.
You just want to think about like what skills do you actually need to display. If you're doing characters, you probably need to have a good sense of anatomy and movement and costume design and lighting and value and all these things. But being able to animate, probably never going to have to do that on the job.
Yeah, it's more like a training program, I think, for a lot of artists, where it's like, oh yeah, I learned how to animate so that I could draw from any angle or keep a character consistent or whatever. It's the most hardcore of training.
Yeah.
Ooh, we're getting like a little backdrop-ish.
Yeah, I've been doing these little like platforms for all the characters that I've been doing, just for fun. Kind of implies an environment and everything. So I figured like he looks like this druid, they hang out in the woods, I'm sure, the forest. So I want to imply like a foresty landscape.
Love it. I like that they just hang out in the forest. Like they're not really doing much. They're just hanging out.
They don't have a job. They just chill, pal around. They're living the dream, frankly.
Frankly, having like a little rusty robot friend going around in the forest. It's literally the dream.
I hope we have time for it, but now I'm wondering, like, maybe I'll have to throw on some really quick sort of rust and moss and stuff on him, because we had some cool ideas for him, but I don't know if I'll have time for both characters.
You have time for whatever you want. We'll just stay here all day. It's fine.
Can we do that?
We don't have other programming, other very amazing programs.
Can we just take it over? Rusty must be painted.
Sorry, Voodoo Val. Sorry, Julia. It's just Sam's time now.
Paco's on the button right now. Like, should I shut him down?
He's like, I've got the screen. It's going up.
They're conspiring. I'll press the button.
By the way, thank you for the reminder, Cody. In about 40 minutes, we're going to have the artist spotlight where we spotlight one of you guys. So don't forget to submit your recommendations for the next spotlight so that we can highlight your work. There's a tab right above the chat. Do the thing. And Jake Green says, I just sit around feeling like I wasted all my money not using the programs that I paid for. Lol. That's a sad lol.
I think there's always 500 things I want to do, so I can relate. It's like, oh, I really want to do this thing and work on that, and don't have time and forget about it for a bit.
For sure. Ooh, that is moody.
Yeah,
it's all dark like that.
I just made it a multiply layer, darken it down. I don't want to go like too dark, but I'm wondering if I want the maybe.
That's nice though. I don't know. There's so many good things.
Yeah. And this is like the goal for me is I always try to establish as much information as I can, as simply as I can. So like a gradient for the background is great for that. And, you know, just doing this one big brush stroke for the lighting, just blocking in shapes. Like you can get these impressions really quickly. That's kind of like what I'm trying to do is I don't want to have to think like too much. Is this exactly what I want? You know, is this? Yeah, I guess what I mean is, yeah, I don't want to have to work on something for like an hour. I mean to say, before I know if it's what I want or not.
True. Yeah.
I try to establish something really rough and messy in the beginning so I can tell within like the first 20 minutes if it's going to be successful. Because in the past, I've worked on things for hours and hours, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't like this. And
actually, nah.
this wasn't a good foundation. And then I realized like, well, you know, if I can knock it in early, it works a lot better.
And you learn that through doing the like long, arduous tasks. As it sounds so like, oh yeah, just do it right from the beginning. Like it's easier, right? But the idea of going through those processes where it takes forever, that's when you learn like, okay, maybe there's a faster way to do this. But doing the faster way doesn't always come naturally to everybody, where it's like, oh yeah, I can just do the quickest, shortest path.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to work through things and be able to paint. Like, if you can't paint a face, you can't paint a face fast, right? Like, before you are able to do something quickly and efficiently, you have to learn to be able to do it in general and do it well. But I think the takeaway for me was focus on the big shapes. Like, don't get into the tiny little details. Really try to establish the big shapes, the big values, the big colors. And even if you do them loosely, like if you look at my colors, these are not refined looking, but when you zoom out, it works as a whole. Like the colors are there and the shape and values are kind of in place. So everything, you can kind of get an impression of what this will look like finished, even though it's very blocked out.
Absolutely. I feel like brains are not given enough credit for being able to fill in information when it's just implied. Like, oh yeah, I know everything that he's wearing and holding and all that stuff. But yeah, it's when you zoom in, you see the brush strokes and you're like, oh yeah, it's just kind of implied.
Yeah. And I like that. I like looseness in paintings. And I feel like I always admire people who do that well. And that's kind of why I've been more intrigued on like how to do that myself.
I mean, the last time you were on Adobe Live with me, I remember you saying that same thing where it's like, I really love when people can leave things loose. And I feel like I've already seen progress in your work to do that. Like you leave it so loose and it feels like exactly what you're saying. Like you know how to paint it, the face fast. Like you've done that and you know how to get it to a loose state that feels like everything important to understand what you're getting across is there without having to like really render everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And that's been the goal for quite some time. It probably is always going to be something that interests me. So it's always something I'm trying to push closer towards.
Well, with artistic style, I don't think there is an end road. It's just forever into the distance.
There's always something interesting to try to get better at. or understand more.
Absolutely. Like how to make Rusty the cutest little bot there ever was.
I mean, that's honestly a challenge for me, is like mech drawing. That's not
Right?
something I've done much.
How mech times have you drawn a mech? Can you count it on a hand?
On my two hands, probably, yeah. It's been very few, honestly.
I'd say like one for me. So you've got that. You know?
I've got at least two, so.
Yeah, nice.
All right, so the next step, I kind of like the lighting, but I'm gonna I'm gonna try the old classic rim lighting.
Yeah, that's
Doesn't
right.
make sense? Don't care.
Don't care. Got beef? Bring it up with someone else. By the way, Jake says these are great tips. Getting that right balance of enough information to explore bigger moves before getting too into the weeds of detail. I think it's a constant struggle for probably every artist, if not like 99%.
Yeah. And we talked about this yesterday, but that whole no zoom in challenge thing that I was talking
Yeah.
about, that's kind of what that's about. Like, you can do an entire painting and establish an entirely cool image without ever like going into detail at all. And I could name plenty of artists who do that. And I follow a lot of them and I admire their work. And it's like, it always fascinates me when I'm like, this person did like an entire painting and it's all basic shapes. Like, you look at the main character's face and it's like 3 values. And
Absolutely.
I think that's such a cool power that illustrators have, is like, if you can illustrate an entire scene, an entire epic battle or like landscape or something, that evokes so much emotion and tells such a story, like such a big story, so clearly, but you zoom in, like nothing's detailed. Like, that's the coolest thing to me.
Absolutely. And seeing it be so rough, it's kind of like a whole nother layer of impressed, because you can zoom in and have that visual payoff for the viewer where it's like, and you keep seeing stuff and it's beautiful and detailed. But then also there's the flip side of like, and you see blobs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm impressed. Those blobs look so convincing from like 2 feet away.
And it makes me ask myself, like, what makes a painting cool? You know, like what makes it work and makes it good? And I think maybe early on it's like, oh, it's so detailed, but you kind of realize like you don't need any detail. So that whole challenge of, you know, never zooming in, just keeping it zoomed out the entire time, I think is something I'm trying to basically do each painting I do, see how much I can establish without zooming in. And just one artist, if anyone's curious who I'm talking about, I know there's a lot more, but a lot of times I think of this artist named Tony Infante. That's what he goes by, I think, on like Twitter and his socials. Toni Infante. I believe that's what it is. He does these big illustrations and like it's all simple shapes. So it's really neat to see that kind of stuff.
Definitely. Another one that came to mind when you were talking about it is Pascal Campion, who does a ton of illustrations. Like, I think he did a series where it was like 1,000 illustrations because he did one per day. And
wow.
they're all very like lighting or color concentrated. It's very much like mood first. And I think that that is such a valuable thing to get down, is like, oh yeah, you don't need any detail if you have this amazing lighting. It's still a piece that I would hang on my wall, which I literally have pieces of his on my wall. And they are like the messiest, blobbiest, basic Photoshop brushes. Like, it's great.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in animation too. Like, when I see people who do like color comps and color keys or whatever it is for animation, background painting, like some of those artists are just so good at lighting, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely draw a lot of inspiration from that stuff.
Thank you, Cody. Put a link for Toni Infante in the chat. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Cody.
And by the way, Kenneth says that rim lighting pops.
Yeah, I'm adding it. It's like fairly subtle. It's not too over the top, but I'm doing it. It looks cool.
It looks so cool. I think it always works, especially when you have a setup like this where they are on the platform and there's like a blank, well, it's like implied background, basically, like kind of giving the mood of what would be back there. And in that setting, rim lighting just feels like the go-to. Like it makes so much sense. It's almost like if you don't see it, it's missing.
Mm-hmm. And right now I'm doing a fill light. I'm not sure if this is actually good or necessary. I'm kind of doing like a cool color. You can see I'm choosing a blue here, but just because it's in the shadow, I'm wondering if a little bit of like just ambient cool lighting
Definitely.
look good.
With so much warm, it feels like a little bit of cool goes a really long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to get a balance of that too. I mean, you can see in his costuming, I kind of have this like bluish clothing for his sleeves and his pants to balance out all the browns and warm greens and everything.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever taught the hierarchy of color thing where it's like big, medium, small?
I'm familiar with like big, medium, small in a design sense, but
Right.
I'm not sure what you mean by color. No, like
Yeah, it's
how much color is dominant in a scene.
basically, yeah, it's the same concept of like you have a hierarchy where it goes from big, medium to small, which you're talking about in design sense. It recently was taught to me as color, where it's like, oh yeah, there should be this much of your like a base color, say like, oh, most of this piece is going to be brown, so like brown is the big, and then the
Hmm.
medium should be like some kind of, you know, other color, and then the small is like your pop, like another color.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Um,
just creating a hierarchy of colors. I don't know how better to explain that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I always pick like a primary color, a secondary, tertiary, and so on. And then usually there's like an accent color, which in this one would probably be the yellow trim on his clothing.
Nice.
Certainly. And I there's this resource that Valve made too, like the Dota 2 workshop art guide or something like that, where you can make assets for Dota 2, or at least you could. I don't know how it is nowadays, but they actually released guides on like design for their game, because if you're going to make skins and things for this game, they want to, you know, help people create it with a good aesthetic. So it breaks down silhouette in that a little bit and how important silhouette is. And you can see these little graphs, these pie charts where they do like yellow is the dominant color for this character, followed by this blue.
Nice.
And then they have this red accent because they're very little characters on screen. So it needs to be more simplistic.
For
So
sure.
for my characters, it won't really be like 3, but for that game, they primarily choose 3. And I think that's a really good way to choose color. If anyone's not comfortable with color, like ask yourself, what is the dominant color of this piece? If it's something like this, it probably will be green or brown because they're wearing a lot of leather or brown or green clothing. So I have to kind of pick which one, you know, is going to be the most obvious. I'd say because of the cloak, it's kind of between brown and green for this, but then blue would probably be secondary or tertiary. And then there's like the yellow after that. So
I love it.
yeah, that's a great way to approach it, I think.
Yeah, and with anything that's kind of like a, I don't know, guideline or rule or whatever, everything is meant to be broken. There are no rules in art, really. It's just to get you started, to feel like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a base to work from that I know will work because this is like tried and true. But if you ever feel like I want to add another color, don't let it hold you back from adding that other color.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so crazy how much that background added to the mood of this whole piece. I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, like to just kind of have it aid the lighting, but not have to commit to a background, but you still get that like sense of atmosphere a little bit.
For sure.
And from here, I've just been playing around with the same thing. So we initially did a multiply layer for the shadows and a color dodge layer for the lighting. And I did a little bit of like a fill light here. I don't know if it's really adding much. I could take it or leave it. I also did like a little boost in the brightest parts with another color dodge layer. I felt like the face and the top area could use a bit more. So it's really just the same layers we've been talking about, but just doubling them up if I need to. What I could even do is make another multiply layer and add some additional like deep shadows if I wanted to, kind of like a ambient occlusion sort of shadows if there's any
Ding,
like
ding,
really
ding. Bingo
really
card.
dark. Yeah. The Sam bingo card. Like some of these areas here, like the cape where it lies on here and under this little hood piece, maybe under the belts, just anywhere that feels kind of flat, like this belt across his chest, I think could have a little bit of a shadow there. Anything that's just been kind of bugging me, it might be, worthwhile to mess with that a little bit.
Are things bugging you?
All the time.
It's so good. Sam, it looks amazing.
I mean, just if anything looks flat and you're like, I want to get a little bit more value, a little bit more depth there. But I mean, for the most part, I think it's in a pretty good spot.
It's beautiful. I love the spot it's in. Only thing is the leash isn't connected to Rusty.
Oh, you are correct.
It's the only thing I can think of.
Make a leash layer here. See if I can do this. And I imagine it's connected like right about here. So maybe it's like.
Oh, this is very important. Oh, the swoop. I like that you threw it. Like,
got to do it in one go. This is kind of visually confusing. This antenna leads down straight into here. Makes like this big U. Maybe I'll change the colors. From a gesture standpoint, it's pretty cool, but from a value standpoint, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lock the transparencies on this leash actually, and see if we can
lock.
Do a sort of like rim light. So it stands out a little bit there, catching some light.
The tiniest bit. Hey, and another use for rim light, leashes.
There you go. Just slap a rim light on everything.
Exactly.
That's the way. Honestly, rim light is a great like go-to thing, just if I don't know what to do.
Oh,
Just
it's
try
amazing.
it out.
Yeah.
See if it looks good.
Is there any time where you're like, oh, I don't want to use the rim light here?
I mean, I like to see if I can get my values to stand out without the use of it, if it doesn't make sense contextually, like if the environment, or maybe I want a bright background, rim lights make more sense when there's a darker background environment.
True. Cody says, I always turn on smoothing when I'm drawing leashes or tails, etc. When I need big swoopies, it helps a lot. That's so funny. The smoothing, yeah, it basically makes your lines a little bit smoother. Hey, what? But it's just funny to me that you're drawing so many tails and leashes that you have a technique for it.
All the time.
And Fairy says, wait, I have Sam's brush. The special brush that you use.
I think this is kind of where I want it, where we could go into the next stage, which would be like actual painting, blocking in the painting. So these were what we were doing before.
Yeah, all the different lighting concepts.
Playing around with it. So you can do these pretty quick. I still think this one's actually pretty neat.
It's very neat.
But this is kind of that so cool. Golden hour lighting. So we'll go with this one.
I say this becomes another one like your previous armored guy where you just do all the lighting studies.
Yeah.
Like every way.
It's fun to do that. It's a good study, I think, because maybe you always kind of stick to one method of painting, and it's good to kind of like branch out in that way, push yourself a little bit more to realize there's like a lot of really cool lighting scenarios you can utilize.
Absolutely. And that way I don't have to choose, which is the bane of my existence.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. So what I'm doing now is I kind of have three processes for the whole painting area, or the whole painting stage. One is blocking in the lighting and shadow like this, where I should be able to tell if it looks good from this stage. The second is blocking it in with like a rough big blocky brush. So I use this this hard round brush, and I kind of just do this paint dabs. And this is the stage that I'm still trying to figure out a bit. But I found that this is what works well for me. Is I'm essentially doing the same thing. I'm trying to establish really big chunky areas of light and value. Like if I want to brighten it up a bit here on his ear, and I use a textured brush to finish it off, but I try to get all the shapes to read in a big way with this brush at this point and stay kind of zoomed out and see if I can get it to look good in a slightly less refined way.
Yeah, this is like the rough painting kind of thing where you're going in and getting some detail, but it's not necessarily like you get the eyelashes in.
Yeah, exactly. And I can still focus on big shapes while painting in a little bit more detailed.
Mm-hmm. I just want to shout out to people who are watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, but we are also reading the chat on Behance. So if you want to join the conversation, hop on over to Behance and we will love to talk to you. Sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead. I'll say it after this.
I was just going to say about 18 minutes until the artist spotlight. Whoop, whoop.
Okay, cool.
What were you going to say, Sam?
I was going to say that on this stage of it, I actually use the smudge tool a lot. So I don't think I mentioned that, but what I do is I put in these big blobby shapes and I kind of smudge like that. So if I make a brush stroke like this and I just want one area blended and I still want a hard edge, I just kind of run my smudge tool over one edge of it. And it's a soft round brush, 50% strength up at the top. And if you go into brush settings, the scattering is checked on and set to 10%.
Nice. Thank you for all those deets. I think that's very, very useful.
It does take up a lot of system resources if you do it large. So you'll never really see me like making this, a giant brush just because it does right there. There's a little bit of lag, and the bigger I make it, the more lag there is. So keep in mind, as soon as you put scattering on, it starts being more system intensive. I think spacing on your brush, it makes a big difference as well.
Absolutely. I also think it's a great call out that you often have like one edge that is sharp and then you want it blended on the other side. I think that's something that beginning artists have sometimes a hard time grappling with, to be like, oh, but can't I just paint it all with a hard brush or a soft brush? It's really the in-between.
Yeah, for sure. It gives you nice edge control.
Yeah. Technical terms. Edge control.
So I'm actually going to take this, and I do this a lot to merge everything down into one layer. It creates a new layer with everything compressed, which is Control Alt Shift and E, basically like a little snapshot. I'm just gonna make a reference for myself here for the line drawing.
Nice.
I do this a lot because I want to know what the line drawing is, what it's supposed to be, but without flipping the lines on and off every 2 seconds. Sometimes that kind of is tough to work with.
Absolutely. And also if you're working with dark values and have dark lines or something, it can be hard to see them.
Yeah, exactly. So just kind of use it as a reference, and it makes stuff like this easier, where I really want to get the shape of that mouth the same as I got it in the line work. And that becomes tricky when you have to flip it on every 2 seconds.
For sure. Cody says, I remember back in the day when Sam refused to use any texture brushes. Times have changed.
Oh, man. That's funny. Cody, I literally thought about that the other day, how that used to be a thing. And it's funny that you were there for those days long ago. Yeah, it's true. I used to I wouldn't say it was my thing, but it was like a weird quirk about me. I was the guy who always just used the round brushes and never had any textured brushes. And it's not me any longer. I'm still very minimal with my brushes. I still only use a few. And honestly, these 3 brushes I've gone back and forth on for like a few years now, but this is the brush I'll finish with. This is the brush I'm using now. And I haven't used this brush for a while. This is a brush that I was using for some time, really good for like angular brush strokes.
Mm-hmm.
But that one's kind of gone by the wayside. It's just those two really, the hard round brush and then my texture brush. So I'll probably go back to it at some point. It's like kind of what's happened historically.
You have waves of things where it's like texture, not texture.
I think it's more like each brush seems like it has something it does well and like a job it accomplishes pretty well. But depending on my workflow and what I'm trying to achieve, I'll like go towards one or the other. So it's kind of interesting. Like I think they're all good brushes, but really depends on like where my head's at, what I'm trying to accomplish.
Nice, yeah. Always important to listen to yourself above everything else.
Yeah, and it's good to just kind of like experiment and be willing to refine your workflow or change things if it makes sense, experiment with new things. So
absolutely
I do that a lot.
Umacorn says, no texture? Sam? What?
Well, this is what I would kind of do next. Like I would go in with this brush and it looks pretty cartoony. I'm trying to find a style that I'm a bit more comfortable with, but just going in with like this brush and trying to keep it loose still, like doing these kind of bigger brush strokes.
All the nuance of color within the skin tone is really appealing. You did such a nice job of building all those colors up.
Yeah, I'll try blocking it a little bit more. I know we don't have a ton of time left for me to like do the whole character, but I'll try to focus up on the upper part of him, his head and all that, see what we can get done.
Vignette. Well, we've got about 12 minutes till the spotlight, and then after that we'll have like 15 minutes afterwards, so no worries. We've got a good like half-ish hour.
Okay.
You could do anything in that time, right?
Of course. I think it is a weird balance because I've been trying to work a bit faster and refine that and everything, but at the same time, it's like my brain almost goes into different gears for how much detail I'm going into. So there's so much going on, and it's I feel like I can tell I'm kind of going into this stage of this is going to be more detailed and more time spent on it.
So the gear shift is like okay.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm like, this is a doodle. I'm just big old brush strokes blocking it in. And I think the goal for me is controlling that, because sometimes I feel like I don't have control over how long I spend on it, and I want to be able to, kind of gauge how loose or how quick or how refined I'm going from the get-go.
Right. You're like, this is going to be a 5-hour painting. Go.
Yeah. Like, this is how detailed it's going to be. This is how long it's going to take me. But still figuring all that out.
For sure. I feel like that along with style is kind of a continual thing you learn about yourself. Like, I can do this in this amount of time. And if I cut corners in this design phase where it's like a little less detailed in the costuming, then it'll take me 2 less hours to render or something like that.
Yeah, just having a good idea of how long things take me is something I feel like I've struggled with.
Kenneth unfortunately has to leave us now, but always watch the replays. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Cody. But Kenneth says, I really appreciate your approach to layering values. I have to agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's helped me a lot lately, just trying to block everything out as simply as I can. So those color dodge layers and the multiply layers help me establish it pretty quickly. And then I try to extend that here. And like I said, this is still not something I feel like I've perfected, but just trying to block these out. You can see very blotchily, like, where's the shadow, where's the midtone, and where's the highlight, and what do they look like? So for the hair here, I don't know if the shadows would go as dark as they just were, so I'm trying to lighten it up, but I'm still going deeper towards where it meets the neck and trying to basically determine what is the shadow tone and then knock that in and see how it looks.
Yeah, because the idea of local value meets ambient occlusion. That kind of idea of like how dark is too dark for the meeting place of the hair and the neck.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to this, but that whole feeling where you're pushing and pulling, like maybe you worked on a hand, like you're painting this one hand for like an hour or two, and then you kind of zoom out and you look at it and you're like, I didn't actually make it better, or it just changed. It didn't really get better. I've been there in the past, and what I'm trying to do here is basically be like, are these the right values? You know, not push this and pull that and push this. It's just like, no, nail this shadow down. Is that too dark, too light? Is the wrong shape? And then it's really easy to do that with a big brush stroke. Like, is this the right value? No. What if we do a little bit darker or a little bit lighter? And then I'll look and I'll be like, no, that's not it. So I try to be more intentional about like, okay, the value's good, but now the shape is a little bit off. And that's like the shape the shadow should be. And I'll be like, all right, that's it. That's the one. And I feel like that cuts down a bit on that push and pull, but of course it's always a learning process, you know?
For sure. And Fairy's asking, did you smudge it? And I'm guessing they're talking about the face. Were you using a brush, or were you smudging with the smudge brush?
So with this brush, I very frequently use the smudge tool. And I have it hotkeyed. Again, you know, I hotkey everything I use frequently. So it's hotkeyed to N, which is right next to B for brush. So I can flip between them really quickly when I use this brush. But you can tell sometimes, like clearly there, I'm not using the smudge tool. You can see how blobby it is, but you can see some softness in the face. So I probably did use it in some areas of there. So if I want to smudge this nose, you know, I'll just kind of do that right there. If I want to soften this area.
But since it's the N, it's a nudge tool now. You're just nudging it.
Yeah. Smudge tool has become the nudge tool.
Yeah.
The evolution.
I appreciate seeing it big, because on my screen it's not like the biggest ever. I know some people play us on their phones, some people play us on their TVs, so it's hard to know how big people can see this. So seeing it up close, we can really see the chunkified painting.
Yeah. And it's tough because like whenever I do this now, I've kind of conditioned myself to be like, Sam, what are you doing? Zoom out, Sam. Think about
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah.
This is dangerous territory.
Uh-oh. Are we getting into the danger zone?
Danger zone.
Oh, I was going to remind you for magic effects that you wanted to show us, by the way.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Thank you so much. That would have been a shame. How much time do we have before the
We've got about 7 minutes. Don't worry if you feel like that would be rushed. We still have 15-ish
we
after,
can
so
absolutely do this in 7 minutes. So I will not have the best opportunity for it now, because he's not like wielding a staff that has some sort of fireball on it or anything like that. But these little power canisters on his, you know, his magic rifle.
Yeah.
We can do it on that, and I can kind of show you what it is. So here is the process for magic effects that I use all the time now and I love. And I hope you do too. First, I'll make a new layer, and it's going to be a screen layer. Also, just give me a warning if I'm going a little too long before it, but I think this shouldn't take too long.
It's fine. No worries. We're flexible.
So the screen layer, I will now fill in with black. I'm just using my my fill bucket tool. You can also do like create a fill layer. And then, so we now have a screen layer that's filled in with black. I will make a second layer, and this is where we will be painting. So I'm going to call it painting. And then I will make one more new layer, which is an adjustment layer. And it is a gradient adjustment layer. So I'll leave that.
Interesting.
Now I'm going to clip the painting layer that we created as well as the gradient map. Whoops, I think I merged them. Create clipping mask. So I'm clipping the painting layer and the gradient map layer to that black screen layer. All right, so now it looks like this. I can go ahead and I can lock the screen layer. I'm not going to be messing with that. And I'm going to be painting on the paint layer. So let's choose a gradient map that's not black and white. And the key for this technique is your gradient has to start with black. And I believe it needs to end with white. I might be wrong on the second part, maybe just a brighter color, but it needs to start with black. So if you see my gradients here, they all have black in the corner. If you do another one, it will not work. It'll look, let me see if I can find an example. It'll look like that. It'll blow out in very strange ways. But if you have black as your starting color with the gradient, it'll work nicely. So go back to your painting layer and you can choose white. White is what I always choose. And I use this with the smudge tool. But essentially you can kind of do different effects like this. I now have my smudge tool selected, and
Whoa.
the essentially white to black changes the color throughout that gradient. So if I choose white, it looks like that. If I choose a mid-tone gray, it looks like that. And if I choose very dark, it looks like that. So what you're doing is you're smudging the white, and it's creating different layers of opacity, which is creating different areas of the, different, it's making the gradient kind of show up as it goes to different levels.
That is fire. Like, you literally just made fire. That's so cool.
Yeah. So you can do like really cool shapes and just kind of have fun with it. And your smudge tool, if you don't want it to be too distorted, you can make it really small like that. Or if you want it to really blur out, you can make it bigger or even bigger and kind of get like that effect.
Oh man, for smoke, you just like make it bigger as you go up and it gets all like out.
Yeah. And this is great for like smoke effects too. I do that normally just with the smudge tool, and the coolest thing is you can go back to your gradient layer and you can try different gradients and it'll change automatically.
Jake says, that's awesome. I'll definitely be using this. Oh yeah. Abdel Rahman says, Abdel Rahman says, such wonderful shading and lighting skills, Sam. I salute you. So you got to salute back.
Oh yes, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Picture.
Sorry, I missed this like electric green. It's so cool. Sam, you're blowing my mind. So
you can get super cool effects with it. A lot of fun. Fire effects really easy to do. Just with like, fireball, and you can kind of like draw it out and just go a little nuts. This is some like weird ghostly effect.
Which is the fun part of like random. You never know what quite is going to happen. And I think there's so much fun when that's like, for a lot of art, it's about planning. And so somehow integrating happy accidents, it just makes it like finger painting again. It's so much fun. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so pretty.
And I think this is the gradient that I want.
Yeah.
Whoops. On the wrong layer. So let's I'm not sure if it'll actually be kind of, smoking out of it or anything, but I could just get like a neat sort of radiant effect like this. And you can always add to it. So I'll put more white. I'll smudge that for that sharp interior. Because the more you smudge, the more it's going to kind of like fade out. But you can cut into it with the eraser, smudge it again, and you can get some like really neat effects. So I don't know if it's super applicable for this specific character because he, like, that magic is contained in his rifle.
Right.
But, I could definitely try using it just for like that glow effect.
I'm just happy we got to see it. I'm so glad. This is awesome.
Yeah, I use it a lot. And actually, the character I posted today on Instagram, that's what I used. So this effect. Nice. Like that kind of, and it was really quick.
Damn, how do you paint so much?
What? I just slapped that on there and I called it, but it looks, even with minimal effort, it looks pretty cool. This guy's staff, that's what I used. I don't know if I don't have the zoomed in version. This little staff here that's kind of glowing in his eyes, I use that. So any sort of magic effect that you've seen in the recent characters, this one, I used it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you can see like on the hat piece right there, you can get some really neat magic-y effects.
That is so cool. I love it. I was thinking, what
is the gradient map?
Yeah. Hey, and you did it perfectly. It's time for the artist spotlight. I can't believe it.
Excellent.
Sam. Oh man. Well, thank you for that magic. Now we're going to turn to another artist that we are going to highlight today. And you can highlight yourself, or you can nominate yourself or somebody that you love the artwork of in the artist spotlight tab right above the chat. And today we are going to highlight, drum roll please,
Anthony Jackson. Ta-da!
Woo! Anthony Jackson, friend of the stream. Yeah. Anthony's work is obviously very colorful and bright. And I know personally Anthony and a lot of his inspirations. So I know like some of the things that are going to go on in here, but we can
Oh,
click through some of
nice.
the projects and just see what we love of his work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, off the bat, like you said, colorful, a lot of really strong shapes here. Like this the Pokemon character here, like
Do
really
you know that Pokemon?
Gengar.
Who's
Yeah,
that Pokemon? Good
yeah, I remember
job.
that one. I used to watch Pokemon a lot back. Oh God, what was it? Like elementary school. So yeah, definitely have
Nice.
some nostalgia for that. But yeah, very cool, like colorful style. I think very consistent throughout this whole portfolio. Works really nicely.
Absolutely. All those colors. And Anthony's been steadily working on a lot of his characters and creatures inspired by Pokemon and Danny Phantom, and a lot of really fun shows that use strong characters and very interesting, like I would say close to minimal character, what do you call it? Costume design.
Yeah.
And I've just loved seeing his projects. They're always, he's pumping them out consistently, where it's like he creates very often, and clearly loves art. I don't know if you're in the chat, Anthony, but if you want to follow him on Behance, he's Anthony with 2 A's, 2_0, so Anthony 2.0.
Yeah, thanks for putting that in the chat, Cody.
Yes, thank you, Cody. Let's pop through his most recent project and see what he's made.
Yeah, I was also going to say, it looks like there's some Illustrator Daily Creative Challenges in here too, which is really cool. A few of these projects.
Part of this Behance community doing the work.
All right, so we will start with this Sima Hive, the only insect that can control the 4 elements. I was researching butterfly wings and found many fantastic colors. Nice.
Ooh. So controlling all the elements, I believe, like probably represented through a lot of the colors that they're using. Mm-hmm. Oh, in the like little drops of water, it looks like on the wings. That's very cool.
Oh yeah, that's kind of little like symbolism there.
Exactly.
Oh, this is really neat.
Yeah.
Seeing like these different color comps.
Do you have a favorite?
Man, I mean, it's almost like that gradient map thing we were just doing. Like it's each one kind of has a very different look, but they all kind of have a cool feel to them. I really like this fiery one and the one on the very left.
Yeah.
I like the contrast against the background of this one, but like the monochromatic look works really well for that feeling in this one. I know they all have a strong look to them.
They do, and they're so happy.
Okay, here's like the pattern on its own. Yeah.
It reminds me of stained glass, which would be so cool to see in like a butterfly queen.
Yeah, definitely. That would be interesting, like stained glass wings with the light passing through them.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Drawings.
Oh, cool. Traditional sketching. Love it.
Yeah. I was curious about that, if it was like done straight in Illustrator or something like that, but yeah, traditionally started, so that's cool.
Definitely. Yay, Anthony. We love to see it. And also, this is a great example of a portfolio put together, because we have a little bit of description of what the project is and then process as well, which is so helpful to see.
Yeah, and just the breakdown of everything is really nice. I like the background texture on this too.
Very textural. Oh yeah. So this one doesn't seem to, well, we don't have a description yet, but she looks like a warrior of heart.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, Rose Knight.
Stylish, innovative engineer you will ever meet. Rose combines her love of technology and fashion, designs clothing that is functional and eye-popping.
Okay, reminds me of Totally Spies.
I like this. I like the traditional drawing on the right here.
Mm-hmm.
Got some cool shapes to it. And these backgrounds too. It's really interesting to see what he's doing with all the backgrounds, like all these like little graphic bubble shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels like animation. Maybe a process, possibly. Yeah.
You called it.
Nailed it. But yeah, I think that the backgrounds also are interesting to see with the characters, because he's clearly changing them up. So the background kind of reflects what he's going for with each of the characters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's cool to see that like process time lapse too.
Definitely. And a very different one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still like very graphic with all the shapes, but different subject matter. So it's interesting to see how he tackles that too.
For sure. Very nice. And it says, can you read that to me?
Yeah, it's every day there are always new worlds to explore. You never know what you'll encounter, what's ahead. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't move forward to find something new.
Definitely. Love it.
Yeah, I like that sort of like otherworldly look to it.
Absolutely. And everybody in the chat is sending their love for Anthony Jackson's work. Yay. Oh, love it. Ooh,
Yeah, these
teal hair.
backgrounds.
I want that.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. Kind of ties them together too.
Definitely.
Backgrounds are always so interesting.
For sure.
Yeah, a little breakdown of the characters again with the traditional process. That's great.
Absolutely. I like her color breakdown too. I feel like the teal hair, I just am envious of that so much. Like, I want to do something fun with my hair. But yeah, the character designs here are super solid. Love seeing the personality depicted not only through the costuming and like the accoutrement of the character, but also the background. Like, you've addressed everything, Anthony. I love it.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to see the style a lot of these characters have, like very kind of superhero-esque animation. Yeah, this is cool. This is almost like more of a logo.
Yeah, minimal. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. And the one who has seen the eye. Ooh, aqua. Oh, is this for mermaid?
I was just gonna say, is this like a mermaid piece? I like the monochromatic colors in this.
For sure. And that glow of the hair, it feels like having that slight glow around the whole character, but especially the hair being the lightest part, it feels like that kind of glow.
Yeah, for sure. I really do like the presentation of all these too, just like the background graphics. Like there's these subtle graphic shapes, but they're not like too dominant. There's not like a ton of contrast on them, so they fade off into the background and complement the character.
Right. Do you find that to be a challenge when you're doing characters, like primarily, where it feels like you have to find that balance of showing a character off, but also having some kind of background to not feel like it's floating in a white space?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes if I go in between with like painting a background or versus like the gradient, if I don't do one or the other and I'm just trying to paint in textures, if I go too dark or too much contrast, it can kind of throw off the balance. So I do have to be conscious of that. Love this graphic here.
Yeah, that's a really nice one. Again, Anthony, you could do some logo design too.
Yeah, this is really cool. Definitely fits like what this character would be. I could see this being for some sort of class or character in a game or something.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Anthony, for submitting your work for the Artist Spotlight. Everybody go give Anthony a follow here on Behance and some socials if he's got them. And I know he's on Instagram. He does Instagram Live all the time. And nice. Yeah, go follow and make sure to submit your recommendations for the creatives on to highlight for our next Artist Spotlight. Wing.
Yeah, this is awesome. I really like the sort of kind of animated like cartoon look to a lot of these. It reminds me of some of those classic cartoons that seen before. So
right,
really cool
clearly
stuff.
Inspired.
Yeah, a lot of that superhero motif too, which is really neat.
Definitely love those powered up people. All right, so we've got about 25, 15, a little over 15 minutes left here. So whatever 15. You feel like doing in that time.
All right. I'll try to work on the face a little bit. We'll do a little bit of block in for maybe 5 minutes or so and then take out the textured brush. But this is essentially it. I'll have to finish this up off stream and I'm sure you all see it on Instagram. I don't know what day. In the coming days, you'll certainly see it. But
you're posting all the time, apparently. So
I'm trying to do 30 days in a row. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
Also, throwing it out there, if anyone's interested in seeing this, these processes sped up, I've been doing these time lapses and I have a good amount of footage now that I can time lapse. So there'll be more in the coming days. But I've been posting on my Instagram Reels, which I honestly just found out existed a few weeks ago. This is how behind I am. But... Yeah. And then there's this thing called TikTok. I don't know if you've heard of it.
What?
But I actually made a TikTok account as well. So I'm posting the same thing on both of those. But if anyone uses TikTok, I'm very new to it. I only have 2 videos up now, but there's going to be a lot more to come. And what I want to do is little voiceovers where I have a time lapse and I do my commentary on my thought process and all that. And this guy might show up on one of those. So keep an eye out if you use either of those platforms.
That is awesome. Do we have a name for you on TikTok?
Oh yeah, it's Sam Peterson _art. So I'm Sam Peterson art everywhere. I don't know if I took Sam Peterson art and I forgot my info some months back, or if someone else did, but
you
Sam
stole
Peterson.
Your own name.
Yeah, maybe. Sam
it.
Peterson _art on TikTok. Yeah, so not much on there now, but you'll probably see some in the coming days.
Excellent. Shout out. Oh, and yeah, Kendall is in the chat. Hi, Kendall. Just sorry, saying that Anthony Jackson streams, so watch his streams too. Yeah. And also nice. He created a flag design for us that was the representation of Behance if we were a nation. So
really,
he is Behance. It's pretty awesome. Sorry, I totally interrupted you. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, you're good. What was I saying? I don't even know. I say a lot of things. If I remember, I'll let you know.
I'm so sorry. Now we missed something.
No, you're good. I don't think. If it's important, I'm sure I'll remember.
TikTok. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
I still
it was
haven't
something with that. It's a strange platform. Oh, this is what I was gonna say. It's a strange platform. It has its own trends and everything like that. I think I'm too old. I don't know. I don't quite get it. But I do think the thought and the idea of short form video is very appealing to me, because I've wanted to make a YouTube channel for so many years and I just haven't had time. And I don't think I will with all the things I have going on, because I'm always prioritizing something else, I guess, ahead of that. But there's so many cool things that I could do with it and that I like do on stream already. It's like, how do you draw a torso? And like, oh, this is how I draw it. And I think like those kind of 30-second short form videos, there'd be a lot of fun little like mini tutorials I could do. So there's a lot of exciting ideas I have, like where I could, do a time lapse and talk about my process or do a little mini tutorial. So I'm kind of, excited to jump into that more. And it doesn't require me editing videos for hours on end. If it's really short, it's a lot more accessible for me personally. So
do you feel like that's one of the reasons you got into streaming, was to not edit videos?
Yeah. and just because like streaming is so low key to me, it's just like flip on the live video, do what I was going to do anyway. It's not like, well, now I have to edit videos for this many hours. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, that is kind of it. Like, I don't have to edit and I can just do what I was going to do. It's not like extra commitment on my part.
That is great. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I think about too. I feel very much in the same boat as you, like short form videos and streaming.
Yeah.
Easier. Yay. Or I should say it doesn't add more work onto your work.
Yeah, for sure. You have a YouTube, right?
I do, yeah, but I don't post long videos often.
It's hard.
It's very hard. Editing videos is its own profession. Like you want to do if you want to do a good job, it's hard. It's a lot of work you got to put in, especially at the beginning. So yeah, I think minimal editing and none if you can is the way to go, at least for my lifestyle.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
We'll just eventually hire editors. How about?
Honestly, that's what I was always saying. Like, if I could hire just someone to edit everything for me and just produce content, like, all right, I'll make this character painting and I'll record it and then you do everything else, then I could do it. But just too much time otherwise. So short form video, we'll see if I can make it happen. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Definitely. Jake loves this idea, by the way, saying that short form art videos are awesome and you should definitely do one about magic.
Ooh.
The magic I think
effect.
Absolutely. We should just clip this video and put it on your YouTube and be hey.
I have it in my notes. I'm like, oh yeah, I could show off the little like magic effect. So,
absolutely.
really
that one's
easy.
So fun and so fast. I love it. Kendall's just talking about how addicted she is to TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
I'm still even getting used to it. Like what is going on with this app, and I'm still very, very new to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I hear from everybody is that they spend a million hours on it and they don't really get everything that's on there. Where it's like sometimes it's just weird.
Yeah, yeah. That's where I'm at. But I'm so hesitant about being like, I don't get the kids nowadays. I don't understand what they're doing. I'm trying not to be that guy.
Is it me? Have I grown old? No, it's the children who. Oh, I love it. Do you have a favorite 90s thing that you hold on to? Nostalgia, show,
Oh
or
man.
anything?
I mean, I think I don't watch like nearly any movies or shows nowadays, and I watched a lot as a kid. So there's so much nostalgia wrapped up in TV shows like All That and all those shows that I watched way back
All
then.
that.
Yeah, like I don't know. There's certainly a lot of nostalgia in shows. There's too many to name too. Like, there's things all the way from like Hey Arnold and Rocko's Modern Life to like Batman the Animated Series, which was a lot different of a vibe, and they're all like super nostalgic.
Right.
And
Do you feel
music,
like, oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say music, of course, is a big part too.
Music is always huge, I feel like. But were you more of the grunge crowd or boy bands or any of those like
Um,
big overarching 90s things?
I was really into pop punk, I guess, in middle school. So like
Ah,
Blink 182 was my
of
jam,
course.
and Sum 41 and Green Day and all those bands.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Back in the Green Day heyday. Oh, so good.
yeah.
I remember Green Day and No Doubt were like my jam for many a year.
TRL, all that stuff.
Total Request Live. Oh my gosh, when MTV played videos. Oh, oh man. Anyways, we could go
Recording.
down a nostalgia hole.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any of that though does in what do you call it?
Influence?
Yeah, influence your art. Good job wording. Thank you, Sam.
um Man, that's a good question. I think a lot of the shows and stuff I watched, they're not like directly influencing my work, but like a lot of the stuff I was into as a kid, like it's like, oh, that's super cool because of this, or like over the top 90s, 80s action movies, or like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like cartoons and stuff. It's definitely there's like an appeal, like what is cool about that, or what did like little Sam think was cool. And there's certainly like that I think that makes its way into my work, even if it's a completely different subject matter. It's like
Mhm,
the things that excited me as a kid, maybe I'm trying to capture that sometimes.
for sure. Did you play D&D back then, or is this a newer thing?
It's completely a newer thing. I've always, I mean, since I got into art, I've always done like fantasy and that sort of stuff, but didn't play D&D for the first time until like, I don't know, a few years ago, when someone on Twitch was like, hey, you still haven't played? You want to join us? And I was like, yes, that would be fun.
Yes. The all important invite. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's how I played my first game. Is someone from Twitch invited me.
Love it. By the way, Allison wants you to paint Blink 182 now.
Paint them as D&D characters.
Oh my gosh, yes. They're called All the Small Things. Yes. Cody says, my husband and I still mostly listen to 90s punk to this day.
Nice.
I love it. Kendall says, I was listening to Fall Out Boy yesterday. Oh, it's still
Yeah,
classic.
it's funny. We've been listening to a lot of playlists, and we've been just kind of like getting different genres of them and everything. And everything is fairly like older. Like the most modern music, I think, is a 2000s playlist, which is like, early 2000s music. Which is pretty old, I guess, at this point.
For sure.
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm aware of modern music. I have like I don't listen to everything.
If I'm aware.
Like honestly, like I don't know. I don't know if I know who's popular right now. Become an old man Sam.
Depends on who you're asking. I can give you a playlist if you want it. 2 great albums just came out that I'm loving. So
yeah, what are they?
Well, 21 Pilots just came out with Scaled and Icy, and it's totally different from their previous work, and I love it. Very retro inspired, kind of like ELO kind of inspired, it feels like in some of them. And then by the way, we have about 5 minutes left in the stream while I'm talking about music.
Thank you.
Marina is Ancient Dreams of a Modern World, and Wait, and Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land. Sorry, it's a mouthful. But I love Marina, who was previously Marina and the Diamonds. And if you know any of her old work, she sounds like that now again. It's crazy how like some artists, they go through stages where they sound like different or similar or whatever. And then she's come around to like a very similar sound to when she began. And I love it.
Okay. Yeah, I listen to a lot of like, I don't know, I guess it's not like stuff you'd hear on the radio. Like I really like my favorite band is a Viking metal band like Amon Amarth, and you know, it's not something I ever hear. So I know when their new stuff comes out, I'm like, oh man, they got a new song, but it's not like like I'll follow certain bands and when they do new stuff, I'm aware of it. But if it's just like kind of popular trending music, I'm usually out of the loop.
Right. It really depends on your taste of different things. Cause like, yeah, Viking metal, I don't know how many bands do that.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan of pop, there's a new album every week. And if you're a fan of rock, it's like, you know, every month. Like there's a certain amount of like how many artists per genre create.
For sure. And I think I used to be aware of it more when I would drive and commute frequently because you hear it on the radio, so you kind of know what's going on. But now I work from home all the time, so I don't listen to the radio anymore. So, but Twitch and streaming and Twitter and all that stuff keeps me a little bit in the loop.
Just a little bit. But then you have to go to the extra, like, oh, they said check out this, you know, music video or whatever, and it's like, now you have to do the effort of finding it, and sometimes that keeps you from doing stuff. So
yeah.
By the way, Mercurial Forte says, why does the Viking metal band not surprise me? On brand.
I don't think I'm shocking anyone there.
Is there a name for this Viking metal band?
Yeah, it's Amon Amarth. I actually saw someone with their car. They had giant graphics of Def Leppard on it, Amon Amarth, Iron Maiden, and I was like, this guy and me would be friends.
Knows what's up. I love it. And Rick Adams says, wonderful stream, thank you very much, have a great day. See ya, Rick Adams, thanks for joining us. And we are almost to the end of our stream, but we also have a question from Cody Bear saying, how do you spell that? Is it AMANAMARTH? Is it a bunch of A's, or is there an O? Or
I put it in the chat. It's a weird word, I suppose. They sing a lot about like Norse mythology and, you know, Viking things.
Obviously, all the Viking troubles of the day. I love it.
Yeah, it's very like Norse mythology influenced. Singing about Loki and Odin and everything, as you do when you make a band.
Odin's horse has 6 legs.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it just encapsulated all their music.
I think there needs to be an offshoot band that sounds like that. Like jolly Viking singing.
I'd be down for it.
Very sea shanty-esque.
Oh my gosh, did you see when that sea shanty like trend went through? That was great.
That was taking the world by storm.
Very pure trend. I like it.
Yeah, very wholesome.
Wade says that was your car, by the way. You just saw your own car from behind. Like, yeah.
I just didn't want to admit it. I saw someone's car who's really into that stuff.
Nice. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to call out about where they should find you, or any projects you're working on, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm mostly doing the focus on the social media stuff with the short form videos. That's kind of my next thing I want to get into. So if you guys want to keep up with that, follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active right now. I'll try to update my gallery site soon and my Behance as well. But Instagram, I'll be posting the same stuff as that on TikTok. But yeah, that's mostly what I'm up to. And of course, I stream 5 days a week throughout all my platforms. So if you follow me on Twitter, you can keep up with all that goodness.
Excellent. Thank you so much for painting Rusty and the Ranger. This has been a lovely 2 days. And if you missed day number 1, then definitely catch the replays. And stick around after this for the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Julia Masalska. And immediately following that is Voodoo Val's new Adobe Live game show. Whoop, 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 whoop. And that is day 2. So thank you so much for joining us on these 2 days. Thank you, Sam, for being here. You've been an amazing guest. Chat's been amazing. Paco's been amazing. Great job, everybody. We did it. So we'll see you again sometime soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Farewell.